the photos.
It's not like going out in a snowstorm, right? Where you can just bundle up and like it's an adventure, and you're gonna climb through the snow drifts, and you're gonna make it to hear that lecture you wanted to hear, and everyone's just like, wow. Here it's like, really? It's 100. And I'm not leaving my living room. I finally got the air conditioning working, and I'm not leaving. But here you all are, and thank you. It's great that you could join us. This is the second in our series of Tuesday talks. This year, using a different format in which we invite an artist or a critic, and that artist, critic, historian, or whatever, invites someone with whom he, she, they want to have a conversation. And so I think it's a pretty interesting format. Because this week we have one of our own, and we have Katya Grokhovsky, who is an artist in residence twice. Who's a Ukrainian-born New York artist educator, and of course mostly famous for being the director of the Immigrant Artist Biennial, which is kind of great. And you know, she and I are landsmen. We both are Ukrainian. You know, you remember Ukraine? There was a war, because we don't think that's 3 wars back, even though it's still going on. We're not supposed to be thinking about that anymore. There are new wars to think about. So anyhow, and Katya's been active as an artist in residence at so many residencies that she kind of defines the term artist in residence. But it's a great way to work, actually. You know, it's a system in a way. It's become a network, and it's a terrific way to make new work outside of the normal gallery commercial routine, because you get to work in a community and often with other artists. It's kind of fantastic. And so she's asked as her conversant, Anna Khimasia, who is, I'm going to get this right, Anna is a Afro-Welsh Indo-Canadian. I kind of think that they're back. Afro-Indo.
So Indo-African Welsh Canadian. Only because he was asking where I was born.
Yes,
and I was like, well.
Katya was told this where she was born, I think, like, so we don't get to know. You know, we want to know. Not that it's any of our business, but I have a feeling that there's going to be some conversation about that. Someone's at the door? Would you grab the door, please?
It's not locked.
Oh, okay. It's not locked.
No.
He just stepped into it wrong.
And Anna is an independent curator and educator who lives here in New York City and often works on collaborative curatorial projects. She has been the curator in residence at the Ebrons Art and Airspace, and has worked in a number of other places. Currently, she's teaching performance both at UCLA and Rutgers, which is quite a trick. To be able to do both of those things at once.
Yes.
But it's great to have you with us, Anna and Katya. Anna, please take it away.
Thank you.
All right. Can you all hear me? Everything's okay? All right. All good. So we self-introduced a little bit more. I think, well, yeah, so born in Ukraine, so we both have lots of geography behind us. So I was born in Ukraine, migrated to Australia, and came here to do my MFA in SIC, School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I've been in New York since, after graduating from SIC since 2011, and have been traveling all over, have established my practice through a lot of residency programs. I recently stopped counting, but it's over 35 residency programs that I've done since 2011. Every year I do 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And the reason being that was initially not by design, but I was forced because I didn't have the right visas, I didn't have the right status to teach until I got my green card, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm an immigrant. I'm a double immigrant from Ukraine to Australia, Australia to the US. So I have all of these backgrounds behind me, and I work in many different mediums. And I have background in first, I went to school, gifted school for children in Ukraine. So I've been painting, drawing since I was a baby. And then I was put into dance as well. So I have dance background. I also did my first degree in Australia was in fashion because I thought I would have a job as in fashion and do art on the side. Well, that didn't happen. I blew that up. So I went back to school and did my BFA in painting in Australia and then MFA in America. And all of those, I mention it because you'll see it in my work. Once we play our works, you'll see kind of influences from fashion to sculpture to painting to many different things. And I also curate independently as well. That's how I came upon creating my own organization. In 2019, I established the Immigrant Artist Biennial because I was seeing a need, and it's based on my own biography. A lot of people ask me about this, and we'll get more in depth why we both have also organizations. So over to you.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for your help with PowerPoint. So I call myself an art hustler, not to everybody, but I do a little bit of many things. So I teach, as you heard, I teach at Rutgers, and then I also teach at UCLA. I teach a course on protest and contemporary art, the rise of performance art, and then an intro to contemporary art at Rutgers, as well as critical issues in art history. I am an independent curator, so I was the Abrams Artist in Residence last year, and I curated a show called Holding, which is thinking about their theme for the year was thinking about I'm totally blanking. Was thinking about sanctuary, and I decided to put together a show with work for artists about artists' work that considered those for whom sanctuary is not possible, so undocumented immigrants, migrant workers, etc. And so all of the work dealt with that. I have an organization called International Arrivals, which is how I met Katya, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we support artists from countries in conflict. We had lofty ideas in the beginning, and we now have a podcast where we talk with international artists about ideas of belonging, migration, home, and displacement. And I also am part of a performance collective, and we have a project in Winnipeg in 2 weeks. We do many things, but part of what we do is we also have a podcast. We also do these performance events, and this time we're doing a performance event and an exhibition. And I also write. I've got a few writing projects on the go. I just finished editing a book with Kambui Olujimi, who's a New York-based artist. I've been in New York for about 4 years, off and on, because I do go back to California. So that's just a little bit more about me. And I guess I'll just end that with, I've always focused my curatorial practice and my writing and my work with artists on artists whose voices are underrepresented, narratives are underrepresented, and that's from the very beginning has been my focus, hence the International Arrivals as well.
All right. So we are going to show a video.
Short video.
Short video. Should we do the lights?
Yes. Thank you.
switch PowerPoint.
Just while Katya's doing that, we hope to maybe talk for about an hour and then open it up for discussion and questions. So we'd love to include everybody in the sort of last hour of just talking about some of the things we've talked about.
All right.
So we started with this video because I think that it touches on a lot of issues that are common between us, but a lot of issues that are present in Katya's work. And so my first question is kind of, this video speaks to notions of displacement, alienation, even alterity, I would say. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit how these ideas are key themes in a lot of your work. So maybe specifically about the video, and then a little bit more about how they become sort of key ideas in your work in general.
So the video, displacement and alienation, I think are pretty much ongoing themes in my work. And it's definitely based on my own autobiography. This is my dad. This is the street they live on. This is how they feel. This is every year I go, this is Australia, if anyone noticed. I just noticed for some reason the other side of the road, the cars, right? But this alienation and this absurdity, this isolation helmets that I make and put my parents in, it's not the first time I worked with them. I asked him to put in his best suit and he suggested I wanted him to carry some kind of luggage, and he said, why don't I dig out a duffel bag that we came with from Ukraine? So this is over, we came from Ukraine in '92 when the Soviet Union collapsed. So this is from the 90s, and it just has a pillow inside it. But the idea also, he can barely see, so he's walking really slowly. And the idea is and I've been in Australia since '92, and this feeling that and you don't need to know, I just like to say anecdotally, these are my parents, this is their home. This is where I spent my teenage years, that street, and that alienation, the car culture. We come from walking cities, we are very urban people, so to live in Australian suburbia felt extremely alienating, and basically I kind of escaped from that, but I always want to make work about that feeling. So I think for me, that kind of permeates throughout my practice is a feeling of alienation and a feeling of displacement, and the absurdity that kind of cuts through that reality. That's how I often feel, even standing on the streets of New York. I feel like I'm standing next to myself. I don't know how, it's a doubling effect, because I'm always feeling slightly off, because I cannot simply, this is my second language, and sometimes I've been speaking it since 90s, but it's often still not me. So I want to go back to speaking to people that I've met that are my friends here who don't speak my first language, to speak my native to them, and then I realize that sort of cut in the reality of mine, and that's where my art comes in. So for me, art is a language where it sort of sits in between. It's this liminality that I'm very fascinated by, because it's also humorous. Once upon a time I didn't speak English, and I've actually made work about that. I've attempted my early work in my undergrad in Australia when I was still going through learning English. I attempted to make work where I didn't speak English, but I spoke English, and I forbidden myself to speak, and I did a performance where it was in student gallery, and I would sit on the bed. I made little apartment, like I was back in Ukraine with wallpaper on the wall from memory and all these things, and I had vodka. This is still when we could do all sorts of stuff. I had vodka shot with each person that sat with me, so by the end I was blind drunk. My dad carried me in his arms out of there. My whole family came and drank with me, of course, in Australia. But I also attempted not to speak English. What's interesting, the drunker I get, the more it worked, because I just went back to my natural self, and then I ended up speaking just Russian the whole night to my professors. And there's some video, very, very, very grainy videos where you can hear me just rambling on, and the English is gone. So I did, but that was at the end of like 4-hour opening. So why I bring it up, because that was, I was still very early in my development as an artist, and I was attempting to go through immigration and think about, as a human, how do I belong? And then art was this language that saved me time and time again. And I think to this day I credit it with, this is the language. If you don't understand, we're going to use art. So whenever I travel, whenever I don't speak the language of the country I'm in, I'm very, very aware of artistic sort of using art, doing performance work, which is partially why I started doing performance, because it was connecting to others. So I think this video is an example of this loneliness, alienation, but also absurdity and humor that's definitely in my practice. So coming from this conversation, I'm interested in a question of estrangement, because we're both not from where we are sitting, right? We're not American in any sense, but we both made our homes, lives in this country, and careers in practice. So I'm interested how both of us living here, practicing here, does this fact affect your work as a curator in pedagogy, also as a co-founder of International Arrivals, and how, like if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. I think that there's lots of overlap in terms of feeling displacement. And I think it's interesting in your work too how you choose to exaggerate those feelings through mask work, through wigs, I'm just thinking of like your bad women, which you will see come through on the slides, and even language. Here you're putting yourself into a position where language is not shared, so you are sort of forcefully alienating yourself or others from you, and so I think that there's a lot of sense in that. And the more people I talk to who have come from elsewhere to America, there's definitely that sense. And it comes out in all different ways, not as exaggerated necessarily or as playfully as in your work, but I think it's, a lot of people talk about being in this third space, being between places, being in from where they came and where they are, but always feeling like they're caught between, which you talked about, like doubling. I think that that's a trope too. So for my own work, I think that, I can't disassociate the history of me from the work that I do. And it's really important for me, I've always been interested in issues of racism, dispossession, violence, the public. What does that mean when we're in public, and who is the public, and what does that mean, public space? Ideas of who gets to use it, who gets to speak about it. It extends to the idea of the public sphere, right? And who is included in that, and who gets to have a voice in that. And so I think I've always looked to those people who aren't given a voice. Who are we overlooking here? Whose stories haven't been told? Which artists are not promoted? And so I think that really has informed the way that I think about curating, the way that I think about community. It's like, how do we build community here? And I often work collaboratively, because I think that that's an important way to be more inclusive, both for community and for others. And so I think, for me, starting as a curator, I was really interested in that gap. Like in Canada particularly, I'm Canadian, so you heard my dad came from India, was born in Africa, went to Wales, married my mum who's Welsh. Then we emigrated to Canada. So it's a long history, but it's also a history of class as well. My mum comes from a small working class town in Wales. They were miners. My dad comes from a wealthy Indian family. And so from the very beginning, I was aware of class, race, gender. Those were part of who I was, the fabric of who I was. So in Canada, there's a real gap, I thought, in terms of listening to various voices, whose voices, again, are we not presenting in galleries, whose voices need to be heard? And so I sort of found a niche there of like, okay, I want to look to non-white male Canadians, really. I do work with males as well, but just opening up that space for underrepresented artists.
Where are we? Okay.
And so I didn't really talk about that the immigrant though. Right? Like, it's funny because I don't think of myself as an immigrant here. I sort of feel like I'm just popping in. I don't know why I feel that way. I've lived in France. I've lived in LA. I've lived in places, but here in New York, I sort of feel like I'm just popping in, and I don't know why that is. I don't know why I don't feel more connected to what's happening here. And so it's always, there's not that much difference between Canada and America in some ways, and then there's huge differences between them in other ways. So I guess I'm always aware that I'm not American.
Right. So
right?
yeah.
And so this word immigrant is a funny word, and it's getting traction now in sort of negative ways. But I wanted to ask you about that word, because it's a word that comes back in your work. It's a word that comes into the Immigrant Artist Biennial. And so maybe you could talk about how you mobilize that word as an artist, but also for the Immigrant Artist Biennial.
It's something, and I think about this a lot because I do get this question quite a bit about the name of the biennial. So for me, it's reclaiming it, basically, because it's been absolutely kind of made to be, it's politicized, it has weight, it's been, especially under current administration, it's been weaponized to dehumanize people. So it's divisive, and I've also been migrating pretty much my whole adult life, I realized.
Yeah.
So I'm just reclaiming it. And it's also a way to create, of course, community and space, and it's a signifier, it's a symbolizer. And I wanted to also, I've been called, here I'm an alien, right? Extraordinary alien, then an alien, then immigrant, then resident, and all sorts of things. So these kind of labels that come with immigration as you move through statuses was interesting to me, and I thought really long and hard about naming a biennial something, and even having a biennial. There was a lot of considerations. Before I established it, I went through New York Foundation Immigrant Artist Program, where I was a mentor for about 6 years, but I was also a mentee. So I thought, they're naming it NYFER Immigrant Mentoring Program, for immigrant artists, mentoring program for immigrant artists, and that made me apply to it, and it made me meet so many others. Mm-hmm. So I kept meeting people, extraordinary amount of people, and artists who, after the program, I think it's about 6 months long, kept needing another space to meet, another space to connect, another space to create, to curate, etc. And I thought, there needs to be a platform. But also the word immigrant is, NYFER named it. It's kind of one of those things, if it's represented, if you see it, why not? So I decided, played a game with myself that I will give it a name. I wanted to establish my own biennial because of the art world, because I wanted a big ass name. I wanted a big thing. And reality is it's two women and a website. In the beginning, it was me with an idea. So right now, it's two women and a website. We don't have a venue, we don't have funding, we have idea. But we have a lot of attention, and now it's, established way more than in the beginning. But in the beginning, it was just me kind of legging it, kind of presenting it to people. But first, I gathered all my experience here. I worked with NYFER. I went back to them and I said, I have an idea. You are a fiscal sponsor. If I propose to you and you're accepted, then it's on. And they accepted it and became my fiscal to this day. We're fiscally sponsored by NYFER. So are you.
So are we, yes.
And I remember getting that invitation and opening an account with them and having it on their website. To this day, we get donations through them, etc. And I'm like, damn, I got to do it now. Now I have to do it, because it's anytime you have an idea and you think, it was just an imagination. It was just, nobody's going to like it. It's too much of a immigrant thing. Who's going to support it? And the minute they did, it snowballed, and I started kind of, establishing it.
But I also think that New York itself, is a history of immigrants,
Absolutely,
right? New York was built by immigrants, those that came willingly, those that did not. It's also, the history of art is a history of immigrants coming to New York to make it. And so I think that it also speaks to New York itself. And I think that's people want to claim that. I think that so many New Yorkers like that, like that they are an immigrant, that they came from somewhere else, that they have this sort of duality. And so I think that it's a positive thing, I think, that New Yorkers want to embrace.
And I wanted to also come here for that reason. I actually pitched the biennial to all museums in New York. I have been in all of the offices. I have legged this city for me and for the biennial. I've been practicing as an artist to that point, so everything I have done here, I went back to all the projects and programs and pitched the biennial to. And a lot of people I would pitch it to, I would say, well, actually, American art has been established, post-war by immigrants, by people who are running from Europe and establishing it. So I wanted to show those people. I talked to MoMA, I talked to everybody. And Brooklyn Museum, you see our launch was at Brooklyn Museum. They're now our partner for mostly panels and launches, like one-night events. But they've been pretty supportive. I think they're the only ones that kind of stuck with me because I'm a Brooklyn-based artist as well. So that was a connection that they felt would be great to connect to immigrant Brooklyn-based artists. That was their kind of thing. But a lot of the others were really suspicious. There was something about, we don't want the agenda. And I thought that's interesting. So that kind of hangs over me a little bit because I've been told by curators in no certain terms, you have too much of an agenda. As an artist, you have too much of an agenda. And I keep thinking, what does that mean?
Wait, what does that mean?
I don't know. What is my agenda? I want to make and show my work. That's my agenda. I want to, as a director of the biennial, to show others' work.
You do have particular themes, though. I mean, if we are interrogating this a little bit more, you do have particular themes that are like throughout your work that have to do with these ideas of immigration, displacement, alienation.
Like every artist. Yes, there's definitely, that's because of who I am. So a lot of artists, I also deal with, and we'll talk about gender, I deal with being a woman in the world, being a woman immigrant person who has grown up with certain expectations of family. I'm an only child, and I live across the world from my family. I have no family in America, hence partially why I wanted my own thing. So like you can look at the biennial as a kind of a container of other people coming to me, and I keep getting contacted, and I'm always like, yep, open for coffee, open for drinks, open for anything, let's chat about the biennial, about my work, about anything. It's a community building exercise, just platform really, but it's also kind of my way of establishing myself, to helping myself first. It's kind of like at the airport, on the plane, put your,
you put your mask on first and then help
because
others.
I needed to establish myself here, and I just couldn't, it was so difficult in the beginning. So even though I studied in America, but I still felt, I didn't grow up here, I don't have a legacy here, I don't have any support. What does that mean? I need to create my own infrastructure. I think a lot of women do this. We take care of the infrastructure. So to me, that was, a crucial thing. So I had to name it something. So I named it Immigrant.
And I think, that's how we met, is we just reached out to you. So International Arrivals, we're a new organization. I'm new to New York. My partner, Emily, she actually went to SVA, and she was wanting to get back into the art world. She works in nonprofit. And we reached out to Katya, cold call basically, and said, Katya, we want to meet. This is who we are. We're a baby organization, but we really want to connect. We think we have overlapping ideas and commitments. And you were so welcoming. And we then hosted the opening.
Yes, we partnered up on our last biennial.
Yeah.
And you did a lot of podcasts starting with me and then with a lot of our artists in that biennial. Because we have a lot of overlaps with overlooked artists, marginalized artists who are, especially in the last one we worked a lot with exiled refugees, undocumented. We have a panel in Brooklyn Museum with undocumented artists. And that was, I'm always open to collaboration and partnership, but also made a friend. It's just as simple as that too. I think people forget that, yes, we are professionals in the art world. We also need human support.
Absolutely. And I think that that's crucial.
It's something that I'm always going to be talking about, the humanity that needs to be more present in our culture, and especially in the US, and especially right now.
It's not always just about commercial exchange. Or not commercial exchange, but maybe exchange that's related to your progress as an artist.
Yes, and intellectual exchange, that's so crucial to me.
Yes.
I thrive in that. So we're talking about how we met, and then I've started this conversation a little bit about the fact that both of our organizations are women-run, have two women, and how We also support a lot of female identifying artists through our programming. It's actually part of my mission. It's by design. It's because we are grassroots, and there's plenty of other powerful structures that support everybody else. So I will always support artists who are otherwise lacking in support. And I wanted to sort of talk about this, how, especially currently in the time we're in, how gender is affecting, how gender, freedom, women's rights, everything's being threatened. How do you think that intersects with your work, with all of your work?
My first response to that is like, when does it not?
Right.
Right? Like, it's always there for me. It's kind of like, I sort of flippantly talked about class and race, but those things are so interwoven for me. And it's an embodied position, and for me, there are no other choices. And so I would say, again, intersectionality is a part of who I am. It's what I think about. And it's about inclusion, and women's voices have been, like in the art world, women's voices and women's work have been so overlooked and have not been included in those larger structures, let's say. And so I think it's about making space for voices to be heard in the same way that I think we need to have, non-white voices. I think that we need to have women's voices because they are the underdog here. They have not been included in the art world in the same, ways that we would expect at this day and age. Women have been fighting for women's rights for so long, and we're still so far behind. And with this current administration, it's even more dismal. I think we really, at this point, it's really a dangerous time for us, for our freedom of our bodies, for sovereignty. I think that it's absolutely crucial that we support women at this moment, more crucial than it was, let's say, 6 months ago. And so I think, it's important to support those who identify as women, trans, non-binary. I think that they need our support more than ever. And so, like you, we don't have anything on our website that says we support more women than non-women or non-binary, but we do tend to...
You just do it.
We just do it, yeah.
I never say, if I curate a show that doesn't include male identifying people, I don't say anything. It is what it is. You go and see artists and you love the artists.
And I also think
or
the
you
art
hate
world,
artists.
like I don't know how many artists are here. How many artists are here? Majority are women. Like this is happening again and again and again, and yet it's not reflected in institutions, in organizations. So I just think we need to change that. We need to change that. And I feel that way. I also feel that way about BIPOC.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's part of that conversation. That's partially why the biennial for me exists. But
yeah, and I keep going back to this idea of the public sphere and just who's participating in that and who gets a voice in that.
Who gets to speak?
Who gets to speak? Yeah, exactly. And throwing that back to you, how and why do you think it's important right now? Like, this post-third wave feminism and with this current administration, how does that affect what you're thinking about or what your work is doing?
It's also, like I mentioned, most of my work comes from my biography and who I am in the world. It's just a natural progression, and then it goes larger into the universal, from personal to universal, I guess. So for me, it's just a pure fact of existence and of who I am in the world, how I grew up, how I exist. I forge my own path consistently. I live a particular lifestyle I've been told you live like a man. So many times. And it's because I travel at the drop of a hat. I'm child-free, I'm single, whatever that is. I'm just being truthfully personal, honest. But that's always, that's why. You don't have any weight, something. And I'm like, what does that mean? Every time I get told that, especially when I travel to academia and being an artist in residence in remote locations sometimes, living in small rooms on campus. It's designed for a single person. It's designed for you to be there. I just came back from a year-long residency program, living in a tiny room on campus for one person. So and it's
And that's an issue, I think.
Yeah.
Like how many residencies are not equipped for women who have partners,
Barely.
children, families, etc. And I think that's a real gap in the way that residencies are run.
And it's interesting because I did design my life this way. Like, this is how I live, but what if I didn't?
Yeah.
Why is someone else punished? And it's usually women. And I get told that a lot by other women. Oh, you live, because you're this and this and that. And I always think back to that whenever I encounter that. What does that even mean today? So to me, it's always interesting. And then I get into this conversation and it gets heated and it doesn't end well ever. But because it's a very gendered, it's a very particular conversation. And I'm always in that. But I get invited a lot and I'm always thinking of these things. Well, what if I did want to live my life very differently tomorrow? Would that all end? And why?
That's what's not being said, right?
That's what's not being said. And I'm very, very aware of that. And so I do question, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Why is that something that's still being brought up that way? So to me, my work sometimes directly goes into that, and especially my character work, which is my performative work, the bad woman that is a container.
You are a bad woman.
I am. It comes, actually, it was told to me by my family.
Oh.
You're a bad one because I'm the only one that hasn't reproduced and is not willing to. Not wanting to, it's just how I live. So why am I a bad woman then? So I took that and ran. I ran with it. And now I'm performing this work in the museum in November in California, and the bad woman's traveling, and the performance that I'm doing in November in the Crocker Museum in Sacramento is called Bad Woman Laughing, and she's opening a she's over there. It's 3 of us, so students I worked with at UC Davis there, and it's called Bad Woman Laughing because what else are you going to do right now? It's just going to laugh hysterically at a museum, in masks, in fur coats, ridiculously absurd, but I had to run with that term because it was so absurd to me and ridiculous. And bad woman. So what is a good woman then, right? So that kind of, again, that cut in reality, I just find it so absurd and funny that I need to...
What's the Trump term? Nasty woman, right?
Well, so it did kind of come with that for me as well. When Nasty Woman happened, I thought, and my parents and my family called me bad woman. I thought, well, let's just put it all in this container of this masked, ridiculous character that originally comes with my, she wore, the original one wore my grandma's coat, my mom's nightie, my aunt's shoes. It's kind of matrilineal lineage. Now anyone can perform because the mask now it's 3D printed. It's the copy of the original was paper mache, which disintegrated eventually because I performed so much in it and sweated through the paper. It's now like in this decayed form in my storage as a very precious object. So I copied it and crafted it.
It also makes me think of like people like the Guerrilla Girls, where you have the mask now, and then you just said anybody can wear it.
Yes.
And so the same with the Guerrilla Girls, right? And the necessity for them now, still, to keep at it, particularly in this moment.
So I think, to me that was, the masking was really important, and the 3D print is now indefinite. So I just added a little smile to them. So I'm going to reprint them and then reprint them, and then 3D printing is now, I can cast and through 3D printed into something else. So to me, it's this evolution, but it's also because nothing's going away, so I might as well camp out in this land of in-between and in this land of this character. And yes, so in terms of...
What kind of tasks do they perform?
So you see this boulder, it's called Steve. I don't know, I name things all the time, and they usually, this is a boulder, this is Sisyphean task. It's often either with beach ball or some kind of boulder. This is kind of an egg, supposed to be a bowl, it turned out to be an egg. I missed a part of it that I was sewing. It's very, very heavy fur ball, basically, that I created very recent, this is last year, that these are two students that I was working with in residence in Pennsylvania, and myself just pushing it uphill on campus, and it rolls down and we push it uphill. Very, very tasks that we're kind of tasked with futile labor, absolutely
Right.
futile, but also exhaustion. I'm really interested in exhaustion and exertion. And so there's this futile labor with these the masks are very big, they hit here. So you have to carry yourself a particular way. So I'm very curious in this absurd, my costumes make you perform. The fur is really big, you have to keep folding it. So all of these objects, all of these costumes, they make you perform differently, but there's always a task to look after something. So we're looking after this fur ball. Steve, he had to be a male name because it was a nuisance and didn't do anything. It was constantly obstructing our pathway. So but I gave a task to all of us. I said, all we have to do is look after Steve the whole time. It was 45-minute performance on campus, just push it. And if it rolls into dirt, keep at it. Keep pushing, keep cleaning it. So it's a futile labor that we're all very familiar with, and especially as women. So that was something, also it's very funny and absurd.
But also connects, I think, to thinking about immigrants and thinking about invisible labor, or that labor that
Yes.
gets unnoticed. So not futile necessarily, but thinking more about invisible labor.
Yep.
Perhaps not part of that task, but just there are links there, I think, in thinking through labor, of what that means.
Invisible labor is a huge part of my work as well. And I think a lot of immigrant artists talk about that in their work because, again, based on personal stories, and this is such a typical story of when for example, just an example of my parents having to readapt and find jobs, in factories at first, cleaning houses, washing houses. My mom cooked for people, but she was a librarian in Ukraine, and because of language, then she retrained as a patient assistant and worked till retirement in a hospital, bringing people food without much conversation. So,
Right.
And my dad was a head engineer, agricultural engineer in Ukraine, and his PhD wasn't recognized in Australia, so he worked for Bosch, so German company in Australia, where he couldn't become an engineer because he was like supervising machinery and stuff like that. So eventually they kind of stabilized in their jobs and worked through retirement. But in the beginning, and I remember helping out my mom, like make food for people, and yes, there were wealthy people we would go to and clean houses. And I remember my mom crying because she's an intellectual. So that's a lot of what happens, right?
Yes.
She has masters in arts from St. Petersburg Academy, of arts. Like it was to her this kind of moment of why are we here? But they kept saying, this is for you. We brought you here. This is for you. So a lot of immigrant children, I'm sure, have a lot of pressure. And I've always had a lot of pressure. So when I went into, and that's why I went into fashion design. So when I went into fine art fully, and I said, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna make it, whatever that means, they were so worried that eventually I started involving them in my work. And putting helmets on them because, or making them walk on the street, because I thought, well, look, I will show this, and you watch me go with this. But it was definitely this guilt. I still feel it, and I always feel it, that I didn't become, I was a valedictorian in high school in Australia for no reason. I'm a higher achiever. I just went for it, and suddenly was told, hey, you're like top of the, and then I had such high marks that my parents like, well, you can become a lawyer, a doctor, and I'm like, I faint when I see blood, and law, I can't put two and two together. What are you talking about? I'm an artist, I'm creative. You've seen me be creative my whole childhood, and that guilt and that,
And that pressure. I think that,
Pressure.
so many immigrant artists' parents come to America, let's choose that, come to America and they can't do the tasks that they did elsewhere. So, an engineer or a librarian. And so they have more service tasks and want their children then to do better than they can. And so I think that's a story I hear over and over again in the podcast. We interviewed David Kong, who's based in Vancouver, and he became a dentist, first of all, to appease his parents. He's Korean Canadian. became a dentist, and then did an arts degree, and like was highly successful at it, and then went back and became a lawyer. And I'm just like, David, that's a lot, you know, performance artist, lawyer, and dentist to appease his parents. So much of that was to appease his parents, of like, I can do it.
Yeah, and as an only child, female child.
Yes, that's more pressure.
And not giving them a family, I'm actively ending a bloodline. So I have to do it some other way. I have to be something. So it's definitely in me. It's definitely there. And that's why I always, if I'm not doing something, if I'm getting rejected, which happens a lot when you apply to a lot of things,
Rejection happens a lot.
a lot. There's constant guilt that I do feel. So, and my parents get so disappointed. Every time I tell them, oh, I was rejected from that, don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, no. What did you do? It's like, no, it's how our world works. It's normal. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll get something else. Don't worry. So I think it's the end every time. It's like, oh, do you want to come back? Like, so I made a deal with them that I will come back once a year and I make it work.
And you're going soon, right?
I'm going in August, to see them, and I'm already scheming. What are we going to film? What are we going to do?
What are you going to dress them up in now?
I mean, last time I made work about the war in Ukraine. I also filmed my mom. I filmed them as a documentary just to keep the footage. I filmed my mom making pierogies and borscht at home, and like with beetroot, I just filmed her hands. She sings a lot when she cooks, so I'm just filming her cook. I don't know.
Do I remember that your grandmother was a singer? Is that?
Yes, during the war. She's 100. So I've made work with her and about her, documented her story because she's a World War II veteran and survivor and saved her family. So there's a lot of matrilineal kind of lineage, very strong women in my family. I've definitely worked with them and I want to make more. And that's kind of also where the gender, I feel,
and intergenerational too. Like I love that you've got your grandmother and your parents, and then you and.
I started singing as well, and every time I'm home with my mom, we kind of sing, and I ask her to remember Ukrainian songs and all these things that she grew up with. Her grandma singing, her mom singing. So it's kind of, and I filmed my grandma singing. So I'm really curious about this lineage. My mom taught me how to sew, how to cook. Not in the beginning, she wanted me never to be a wife. It's my dad's always, it's your fault, it's my mom's fault. You did this, because she would say, you're not gonna be a wife, you're not gonna cook, you're gonna be an artist. It was her. So I couldn't cook for the longest time, and I said, Mom, enough already, I'm an adult. You're an amazing cook, like let's just go through all your recipes. So now I'm really good. I can look after myself and make the best borscht ever. So I wanted to talk about community.
Yes. Yes.
And
that was our next topic.
That was our next topic because how are you finding, so living in New York, how are you finding community and support in the art world without having the legacy and history here?
So that's one thing that I kind of had to shift my thinking. In Canada, we don't talk so much about legacy. Like here in America, it's very important where you went to school, who you studied with, who was at school with you. People mention it all the time. In Canada, we don't have that kind of sense of where you went to school or who you studied with. Like it's almost irrelevant. Not completely, but not in the same way of America. In America, it's all about legacy and who you studied with and what you're going to do and how that's connected to the person you studied with. My understanding of what that is. And so I don't have that here, obviously. I don't have that in America. I came to New York just over 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, I guess. And I'm away for a lot of that time as well. So it's probably been about 2.5 years. And so I just had to I didn't know the different universities, I didn't know the schools, I didn't know the organizations, one museum or art gallery from another. I sort of had to navigate that system first to just sort of know where are my people, where do I want to go and see work, what kind of work is shown here, what kind of work is shown there. But I do find that New York has been very welcoming. And people say, how is it in New York? I hear it's kind of a rat race in New York, and it hasn't been at all. And so, I mean, you're an example of that, right? We reach out cold and we've become friends and we've had overlapping projects now. I mean, we, International Rivals just did a talk at Abrams, And Katya was on the panel. We talked about censorship and this new administration, similar to here, but more focused on censorship, really. So I think, I'm navigating slowly, and I'm navigating slowly at being older as well, and so that's more difficult. I'm not in school with students, and I'm not meeting people all the time. So but I am a social person, and so I'm very eager to go out and meet people and go to openings and introduce myself to people. And I've had a couple of people who have just been really solid for me and connected me with other people too. But I find that New York has been incredibly welcoming. And that's been good in some ways. But there are those glass ceilings for sure, right?
Yeah.
And there are places where I will not be accepted or I won't ever get a chance to teach, for example.
Right.
Because I also, here I find the system of like fellowships and internships and support is very different than in Canada. If one person gets an internship at a gallery, that's like the biggest deal. We have so few compared to America. I mean, Canada has the same population as California, and I think we have like a third of the institutions. So there's just not the mass of art. And so something I say to my students all the time is like, the art world is huge and diverse, and you've got to find where you slot in.
Right.
People talk about the MoMA and the Guggenheim and whatever, but there's artist-run centers and there's other organizations and there's different institutions, and you want to go to those institutions and find, are they your people or are they not your people? Are they the kind of work you want to see? Is it not the kind of work you want to see? So I've done that some, and having the podcast has been great because it kind of gives me a card to say, hey, you look interesting, or you're interesting. Can we meet? Can we go for coffee? And so I found New York very good to me. Yeah.
I think I wanted to mention your podcast because I felt immediately, oh yeah, of course, let's chat. I can talk art till I pass out, right? I can talk blue all day long about it. And I was thinking, that's so welcoming to just chat, to discuss art. Let's do it. And let's feature artists from the biennial. Let's keep going. Let's connect. Yeah. And I think to me, that's just a natural way to build a community, is to also offer something.
Yes.
It's something I'm very big on, is the DIY element of both of our things.
Yeah, exactly.
The biennial definitely comes from me also curating other artists independently.
Well, it's a give and take, right? It's not just a take. It's like we can offer you a podcast that you can use to promote your show, or you can use to this. And so we tend to, or we like to partner with different galleries so that we can do that together. And so we build out those networks for both of us. I mean, we have a small network, we're a baby organization, but yes.
I mean, we're a little, well, I would say not a baby anymore, but maybe teenager.
Yeah, I think you're a teenager.
Not getting there, but it's 2019. The first one was 2020. Yes, we had to shut it down and go online and do a whole thing. So it took almost a year to do the first one in terms of actually show things and have one group show physically, and then it takes forever. Everything takes forever. But today I had an anniversary on social media. It said 6 years, and it had the flag of the biennial. So that's when I launched it. And I thought, whoa. Wait, what? It's already 6 years. We've done 2 biennials, meaning it's actually triennial because it takes us that long.
Yeah,
right.
That's maybe.
But I'm not renaming nothing.
But I think you've done really well in like navigating all those structures and systems here. I mean, you've been here longer, obviously, but I think that, building out the Immigrant Artist Biennial has really connected you into institutions, organizations, a variety of artists, the NIFA Immigrant Artist Program. And I think as an artist, too, you're really good at getting into those systems, whether that's, teaching at SVA or these residencies. Your residency is impressive.
I think one of my students said cracking the code. I want to crack the code. Speak to me. I've cracked the code a little bit. But not fully, because I also get a lot of rejections because I apply a lot. I just say but there's a particular code to it. So where, you have to always, it's the give and take, and learning from institutions and understanding what institutions can give you and what they cannot give you, but also what they're interested in getting from you. So there's a kind of interesting balance, and
Right.
it's a marriage, and I call institutions my spouses because that's the only support I have. I don't work full-time. That's basically my full-time currently is institutional support in different institutions around the country, which have supported my work. A lot of what you're seeing is made through residency programs. So there's spaces, there's time, there's money, there's funding for me to travel, for me to go place to place.
And I think community. I think that
Yeah,
residencies are
yeah.
so important for building community and having people to, reflect your work back to you. And have these conversations that about process, but about ideas, about concepts.
Right.
I think that residency programs are really important.
They're really crucial.
too.
Even in this program I got into as an artist in residence, and I'm so interested in also the meeting of these things, like pedagogy,
Yeah.
artist, the kind of, I was talking in my class about professionalizing the wild. So I'm pretty wild naturally. So then getting into, getting your MFA, getting into the systems, understanding that if you're under institutional umbrella, there's some decorum and protocol you have to maintain, but they also want the gooey bit, the juicy bit, right? That's in the middle. The rest is protected by rhino skin because the rejection, right? But the gooey, I want to protect it, and I always offer it as but this is the little, look.
Nugget, yeah.
And that's crucial, and that's what I offer to students as well. I'm pretty honest about these things. But I had to learn all of this. And a lot of back to community, a lot of people I look to are more established artists here, often not from here, who did it. So I
Right.
would be older than me, more established, much more savvy than me, and I'd be well, what do I do? So studying, I had a really good mentor in NIFA program who was from here, and all sorts of people that I've met on my journey. And I have good mentors. To this day, I have mentors that I look to, because I think it's crucial to also have people when you're completely struggling, when you're facing so much crisis and rejection and all sorts of things. And I was in crisis in pandemic. I lost a lot of gigs and income. It's what do I do? What do I do? So I really, really focused during pandemic on the biennial and on getting residencies to support me more. So since pandemic, I've been on my travel academia journey because I found so many of them popped up, especially since pandemic, all around the country with full funding. And when you also get to teach and you get to experience so many different people. So now when I travel back to these places, sometimes to do projects years later, there's so many people I know around the country.
Exactly.
Just sometimes even random cities that people see me and they're oh, I was your student I was at the University of Arkansas last spring. I was there and now I'm here. Hey, let's
and many of
catch
your
up.
students are here tonight, right? Or a few students.
Yes, definitely. So I have a history in this program now, which is great. So there's definitely there's UC Davis here too. Hey.
And are there things that you think would make community stronger, that you think you could benefit from?
Yes, as an artist, there's always more. There's always more we need. There's always more we can do. What I experience, especially when I travel, is isolationist culture.
Yeah.
It's huge here. It's very difficult to navigate. And as someone who, I don't drive, I don't do car culture, and I end up sometimes in rural campuses where I'm totally isolated. And I live on campus, and I'm sometimes the only person there. I just came from that. So but I do focus on my work. It's kind of art monk. I become an art nun. I am absolutely eat, sleep, art, right? Because I'm based pretty much near my studio, so I'm there. You can imagine if you're there. But a year-long thing like that, I need socialization too. So I always urge departments to also include artists and to be not jealous of them.
But these are residencies where you're mainly alone, so you're not going with a group of artists, right?
It's academic residency is it's one person per semester or per year, which you become faculty. You're usually teaching a class, so you are part of the department. But there's always something, you're not from there, I don't know anyone usually, so I have to work extra hard. And I'm always thinking, well, I can't do everything. I can't also, I'm always, let's do a club, let's do a social let's do a happening, let's do an event. And people don't come, people don't go. And I'm just left, I'll go back to my studio, okay. here I am alone again in the studio, beautiful, but I also, this is why I love New York, because we can step out and do all sorts of things, right? So that's when I travel. When I'm in New York, money, I mean, it's an immediate topic here because of the way I live, I do struggle with making ends meet here.
New York is very expensive.
It's tough. I have to let go of my studios very often. I just can't afford certain things. So there's a constant give and take, and I wish there was more support structure, just for us to have some kind of studio programs. We are part of studio programs here. Still expensive, right? Even subsidized programs, even all of these things. The free ones are so competitive that it could take years to get into anything. What do you do? I often just cannot afford a studio, but I tell people all the time, I do invite people to wherever I am. If it's a coffee shop, whatever. Laptop studio, whatever. If it's my little table and all the boxes from the studio I have to relocate that's crowding my apartment, I've had important curators trek to my apartment and give me big shows. So but I wish there was more support structure where I don't have to gasp in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, are my parents right?
And I think that's even more difficult at this moment with the current administration making cuts to funding, NEA funding, for example, that are going to affect artists, art organizations, exhibitions. I mean, exhibitions have been shut down before they've even opened the doors. And so, I don't want to end on doom and gloom, but what do you think about this current administration, like how it's going to affect you personally as well as the cultural landscape? I think it's going to have a big effect.
Well, it's interesting, and we talked about this as in preparation for this, that I do come from a culture that collapsed, meaning Soviet Ukraine, I spent time in independent Ukraine in between with everything's gone, everything, where we literally had to sell our stuff on the street and barter systems and all sorts of things, where electricity was cut, money was lost, everything. But humans are still humans, and I remember it as a very fun time, whereas my parents remember it as trauma and traumatic time. But so going back to collapse happens all the time, ideologies, everything, things collapse. So art at the same time, right, is the survival mechanism. To me, is the most crucial thing in my life. And it literally makes my life. It brings me to places, it leads, it's kind of in front of me. So I think current administration, yes, they're trying to cut voices, they're trying to cut funding, trying to, because they're afraid of artists, right? They're afraid of freedom of voice and all sorts of things. So there's an element where, yes, artists should rise. At the same time, there's too much pressure on us also. So I want kind of sometimes, I keep saying right now, like humanity and more humane approach, like softer approach, where we do soft support each other. And yes, a lot of it comes down to money and really harsh realities, where I'm realizing that so many things I've been supported, I've been supported by Brooklyn Arts Council for a long time. I'm an institutional artist. I've been grant to institution, so these are all in residency back to back. I'm currently talking to 3 institutions around the country which will support me back to back from one to the other, where I don't pay for anything. And then I'm like, who's gonna bring me back home and what will I live on? And that kind of is really difficult as well. So I wish we had, I don't know, a union or something. I don't know, what something as visual artists that we could, so kind of go to have softer support where we vent, and we have to DIY it all the time, right? So I don't know where that sits with current administration, but it's almost resistant of this very harsh, you get emails all the time right now. Smack Mellon, where I've had a big exhibition, is being cut. Their funding is being cut for the next year. What does that mean for artists who've been curated into next year? So that means they have to find their own funding, and all the others are being cut too, all the councils, all of these things. So what is the cultural landscape going to look like? At the same time, America has gone through this before. There's barely any government funding already. We come from like the Commonwealth countries that do have
Government
pretty
funding,
big government
yeah.
funding, although Australia already has gone through cuts drastically.
Canada's going through cuts.
They
yeah.
got rid of Australian Arts Council. I came here on the grant from Australian Arts Council to study and to live. So to me, that's already happening there because they're following America. As simple as that. And America is leading us into a void. So it's leading the world. So I'm fearful. At the same time, I have seen the void, and I've seen it happen when nothing is happening in terms of culturally, but everything is happening underground. Do we all go underground? What does it even mean in a capitalist society? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I've seen underground somewhere else. I've been part of whatever underground is here, but it's still everyone's trying to come out of that and become more professional and commercial and successful. Me included, because I want to live. So what, where do we go? What do we do?
Yeah, I keep thinking more about, like, for me, I think my greatest fear is around censorship. Like, who gets to speak, what is shown, who's deciding what is shown and what is not shown. And for me, I keep thinking about dissent. Like, where are the spaces of dissent? If we can't
Right.
protest anymore, if we can't, make work that's critiquing the whatever we want to be critiquing, where is that space of dissent? And I jokingly talk about 1980s punk, like zines and posters. Like, do we have to go back to that because the internet and social media is so surveyed? So, like, is that where we have to go? Like, is that, handing out pamphlets and leaflets to people? Is that what we have to do? So I guess for me, I think it's going to affect a lot of people economically with so many funding
Absolutely.
cuts, but also this idea of censorship and sort of who gets to make decisions about what is shown and what is said. I do agree with you. I do think that people rise up and that support is needed, and we need to support each other in that. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was thinking a lot about food as a connector, because I come from a culture that feeds, that, we will feed you forcefully when you come into the house. So it's like, let's think about that, what that means, right? To eat together, all of these things that humans require. I don't know, there's something in that, like shelter, basic needs, that artists are also creative beings. We are very good at surviving all sorts of things. And I think tapping into that and tapping into gatherings and humane kind of approach to me is really important right now. And I think because I'm coming from all these academic residencies I've been on the road for 2 years. I'm tired. But I want those connections that are just basic human connections where let's get food together and talk art is a normal thing and not a competition, not anything else. And that stems from a lot of this isolationist experiences that are culture that I've experienced, and also being from a different culture that I think is a value, right? Like I want to bring that into places and say, no, we all need to eat, we all need to exist, and we do want to make art. What does that mean? I don't know. Part of the biennial, when we were doing our Kickstarter campaign, which when we launched in 2019, was dinners. People, and of course, then pandemic happened. So none of them happened. So it's still on my mind. We had a chef lined up. It was supposed to be my little apartment in Brooklyn. We were supposed to have a railway, supposed to be like lawn table in the corridor, and people paid to have like as one of the Kickstarter perks, and then never happened. People just said, oh, don't worry about it, we just donated to the biennial. But I'm still thinking about those things. Can we do it now that's a connector? So that's kind of in my way, it's a little resistance to the very harsh, very cold approach by the administration. Cut, all the funding, cut all the important exhibitions, cut all the marginalized artists. I'm going to clean up my social media because I'm going out of the country. All of these things, I'm very aware of that. I might close it down for a bit, so if I disappear. It's just because I went down to Australia, but it's just the fear, and I've already, because we deal with a lot of artists in the biennial, we talk about these things. Artists have started to contact us that have been in our first biennials, well, two, saying, oh, you posted that on your Instagram, and can we take it down? So because I'm going out of the country, I'm afraid. So we've been like slowly taking down our posts, saying, no problem, we'll just archive it. We have, I asked Brooklyn Museum take down the documentation of the panel we did on document.
Yeah.
So it's happening. The censorship is actively happening.
Yes.
And to be
And
honest,
self-censorship, which
yes,
is both necessary for survival for some people,
Yeah.
but also a dangerous place, I think, when we start to self-censor.
Well, I was going to say that self-censorship, we are currently, when I say we, there's another person, Anna Michaela Ekstrand, who was co-curator in the biennial. Now she's my associate director. She does a lot of bureaucratic work for us. So we're working together on becoming a 501c. It's a necessity, but in this climate, I don't know. With the word immigrant in it, we consider taking it off. And I said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I am claiming and, well, do what you will with it, right? With me as the director I'm going to be the exec of it. I'm going to be claiming it.
It's almost like you need an umbrella organization under which you can have.
Well, we
these
are under
other-
NIFA right now, but I realize in this country, everything, like to get to the bigger money,
Yes.
we need to be our own nonprofit.
Yes.
And because fiscal only allows us a certain amount, which is not enough to pay me. I've never been paid through the biennial. I want to have operational costs, all sorts of bureaucratic, boring things. But to have longevity with this, I almost shut it down after pandemic. I couldn't handle it anymore. And the only reason we did a second one, everyone who was involved in the first one, especially behind the scenes, came back to me and said, don't, keep going. We're going to help. And they did. I had 3 co-curators. I had so many volunteers, so many people supporting it that we did it. The second one was pretty big physically, finally. So now we're talking about doing 2026 triennial. The last one was 2023. Another thing, right? Another big one. We're talking to organizations. We're having discussions, but we want to be a nonprofit. So we have Andy Warhol grant, if it exists. All of those grants, are they? I don't know. So, all right. So we are going to
Open it up.
open it up.
So we had some questions for you also. Like, if you have questions for us, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
But also, we're curious about this current climate, sort of how you're feeling and what you think, what you think as artists or cultural workers, what you think we need at this time as well. That's kind of our question.
I just had one question to start out, which is kind of a language question. The word immigrant has a certain kind of romance to it, whereas the word alien or as the word settler or colonist, they're very different, but
Right.
they can be the same people.
Right,
So
yeah.
in what way do you kind of identify yourself in that range of words that could describe someone who left someplace because it wasn't what they wanted,
Right,
or it
right,
was
right.
horrible,
Yes.
or it was dangerous.
Right.
They wanted something else, something better for themselves, for their families, or they just wanted not to be killed. And they've come to another place, and now
Yeah.
they have a word associated with them.
Well,
They're an alien. They're
Yeah.
documented, undocumented.
Right.
They
Well, we're
are
all
an
settlers.
immigrant. They are a settler colonialist, colonial settler.
Right.
So what are they, and how do you distinguish between yourself as someone who made a decision to come
Right.
here?
Right. Yes.
You weren't forced out of Australia.
No, not here. No, not to
So,
here.
you made a decision to come here
Yeah.
because you thought that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But there are others who don't have that
Yeah.
choice, right?
Yeah.
Come because of poverty
or we're
drought
brought here by,
brought here, yeah.
So how do you find yourself in this whole idea of the immigrant biennial, in that range of ways in which people find themselves homeless or
Right.
without a place where they belong?
To me, it's a platform, and we do ask artists where they're from, what's their stories, but it is about the work. So they often deal with this, colonialism, settle issues, all of these things in their work. So I'm interested in the artist's work, and yes, the Immigrant Artist Biennial has a particular, it supports people who are originally not from here, right? Or who were brought here as children, or who, many different states. We worked with many different people. We also started working with international artists as well, who are also somewhere else, not from there. The idea is that it's not just America, of course, it's everywhere. It's movements, it's a container. So I'm interested in conversations around the work and all of these issues. And sometimes it's in one person. Right? It's all of these things in one person. It's totally fine to talk about it. It's totally fine to also it is politically charged word that's always going to attract both negative. I've had a lot of negative, trust me, I've dealt with a lot of really bad social media in the beginning. I was abused, let's just be honest. I had to block and block and block because people were angry that, we're all immigrants, we're all this, we're all this. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Right, so I am totally open to conversations. It's a way to, yes, exclude, but so is everything else. Why am I targeted? I'm one person doing this. So that was really interesting to me. Even that was what was happening, especially during pandemic, where we did open calls for artists around the world to send us work to be featured on Instagram, because I was sitting at home supposed to be opening a group show of, all these things for the biennial. I was falling apart, so I decided to get busy online. And the works that I didn't feature, the abuse that followed was extraordinary. And these are immigrants too. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone's amazing and good. No, I was also critically selecting work and curating little shows and all sorts of things. So the conversation is just like anything else, is not going to be all butterflies and flowers and food. It will be charged, and I'm totally fine. Like, that is part of the biennial, is also having really difficult conversations.
Before, when you've answered that question, you've talked about like how status is related to immigrant. Like, immigrant status can be many things, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so you are called an alien, or you are on an O1 visa, or you are an N whatever, N2 or something. I don't know, can't remember, or a green card. Like, so
Yep.
all of those.
And I've been all of them.
And all of those are embedded in this
Yeah.
idea of the Immigrant Artist Biennial.
Yeah,
Right.
and each one carries its certain permission, exclusion, and weight. And I was an international student, O1 visa, green card. So all of these things carry a certain permission, and each one I would have a spreadsheet of what I can and cannot do in this country. So I'm aware, and I came here as an international student. So it's a cultural migration. It's not anything else for me. So I wanted to also, I'm very aware of privilege of that. So I'm also to use that, right? To use, well, I did get my MFA from an elite school in America. Why don't I use that, right? Why don't I set something up in New York and access my network? And one of the first people I went to, people / institutions I went to was SIC.
Sure.
I was like, hey, you rich elite place I went to, why don't we collaborate? And no response.
But I think Anna nailed it when she was introducing herself. She said, I'm a hustler.
Right.
Because if you are, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You do.
To always be hustling.
If you're not connected to an institution, that's exactly what you have to do, no matter what your title is in the arts.
Yep.
If you're independent anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the woman in the back? Yeah.
I'm actually really glad that David asked what you did. I was marching down Fifth Avenue a couple Saturdays ago. I don't normally vocalize things, like when chants start up, just because it's really hard in my throat. But somebody around the group I was marching with started saying immigrants are welcome here. And I'm the grandchild of immigrants, and I believe that in my heart. But I sort of felt like at that moment that there was a huge asterisk there for me. Like, for example, I'm not so interested in our country welcoming white Afrikaners. And there's not much of a space to be able to talk about that. And so I wanted to throw that out to both of you. Katya, you maybe already started to address that a little bit. And maybe to ask you a more direct question, if a female white Afrikaner from our newest, demographic of refugees, would contact you and say,
Right.
work, would she get your rhino skin or would she get your juicy parts?
Great question.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a curated biennial, so it's all about the work. And we do look at identity, but it's not identity-based immediately on, oh, well, this person is this person is that. If that person is questioning their being here, that's great. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? Like if that person is doing something that's interesting about the subject or something within the core of this conversation, why they're here and what happened. If not, if it's completely unrelated and if the work is divorced from anything that I'm not finding interesting, I just won't curate the artist. And I don't often, I'm not curating in the biennial anymore because that was the idea, is to invite other curators. So I usually, if I get any contacts from artists, which I often do, I pass them on to curatorial team at that time. If between biennials we're currently thinking about the next curatorial team, I just kind of look at everything. I'm very curious as an artist, like what is this person doing? I don't always know who the people are. It's not apparent, so I might not even know. But sometimes it's very obvious in their work, and they write particular thing and saying why they're interested in the biennial and what their connection to the biennial might be, and our themes change. It's a small project. It's not like we, it's very quite selective and curated. So I would say it would absolutely need to be poignant and relevant and interesting, and if not, it's irrelevant to me. So I don't know. That would be my answer. That it's not that black and white. It's not. We also deal with. There was a curator who was interested in curating second generation and third generation. Absolutely, we worked with that. With also lineage, and people who are third culture. All sorts of things. So it's not. It's an umbrella for sure, but it's also under that we have a lot of intricate conversations. And we make mistakes too. I just want to say that please let us make mistakes too. Us also as women, we have so much pressure to be, good and absolutely. But just like everybody, there's mistakes to be made, and curators sometimes miss the mark. I mean, that's part of it. I check everything, but I can't, I don't control everything. Yes.
I'm getting back to early childhood education after 35 plus years. And, so I've been looking up the origins of everything, especially words, because nothing that you originally did. I just wanted to toss out a few things. I happened to discover one of the original meanings of the word beauty, which is just an object or a picture or a consumer item, but going back to the foundations, I was pleasantly surprised that beauty originally is about you as a person. So it has a sense of meaning. You're talking about it here, literally the act of responding to your own calling. And I was just wondering, these sources, do you ever put a focus on working with young kids? Like I'm looking back, getting back to like preschool, because that's where it all begins. And if you wanted to find something, the father of kindergarten, I finally, about a year ago, his name was Frederick Froebel, F-R-O-E-B-E-L. And his ideas now are coming back. There's a FroebelUSA.org that you might find a lot. They're very nice people, a lot of podcasts. But, his ideas, he was the guy that created the 20 gifts that Montessori adopted. So the hands-on stuff, they even based the Bauhaus on his curriculum. But you can find like an enormous amount, of ideas in this. And just, do you ever use things like design thinking or systems thinking in any of your work with people?
For me?
Anybody?
I mean, I have a design background as well, so it's in my work and teaching, but more, I guess, as kind of background rather than, I don't teach design, but I use design principles.
Design thinking. a way to get team-based people. Children get incredible results from it.
I don't work with children.
Yeah, and I don't either. So
What did you
it's
say?
I don't work with children. I work with college students.
Well, what's the difference?
well,
They're
college students are
adults?
not children; they're adults. Yeah.
Adults, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just an idea.
Well, Anna, you were mentioning DIY culture, and I'm thinking that you guys kind of did a very DIY thing by starting your own organizations. And as someone who, I'm curious about how I can collaborate with other creatives, and maybe that could be through doing something like building something of my own. Just like generally speaking, are there like key pieces of advice from your experience that you feel like we should know?
I think passion. I think it's got to be something that you want to do because there's no money in it. So, you've got to, it's really helpful to have somebody to bounce off of, I think, with ideas and concepts, and just something that you feel really strongly about. If it's not, then it's not going to happen, in my opinion or in my experience. But if it's something that you feel passionate about and you find the right people to work with, then you're going to want to see it through. And so I would say, find your idea or talk to people about creating an idea. I mean, International Rivals literally came over Emily and I having a glass of wine. We'd met in LA. She moved to New York and I was disappointed because I was like, oh, I just made a friend, and then she moved to New York. So I moved to New York and I called her up and I said, hey, guess what? I moved to New York too. And so we went out for a glass of wine and we're just talking about like sort of the art world, and I'm brand new to New York, and I'm like, well, I would love to have an arts residency. I'd love to have an arts residency that had a performance space, that had an exhibition space, that had a cafe as part of it. Food is also very important to me in a number of my projects. I'm interested in the politics of food, but I'm also interested in like breaking bread with people. And so from there, we realized we had no money to do all of that. So like, what could we do? What could we do with no money? And so a podcast, I had just done a series of podcasts in Canada. And so we were like, well, we can do a podcast. Happened that her husband edits podcasts. So we're like, perfect, that's what we're gonna do. We are gonna do a podcast. And so we just started doing it. And then we found P&T Knitwear in the Lower East Side. It's a bookstore, but they have a podcast studio, and now it's a community podcast studio. So we became a community member there. So we're able to do our podcasts for free there. People donate their time. We approach artists and we say, we'd love to have you on the podcast, and they donate their time, we donate our time. We would love to get some money, and we've been applying for grants, but we haven't been successful so far. We've also just hit our 2 years of programming, so hopefully that will change. So yeah, I think it's just about passion and commitment, and to have somebody else to commit to is really helpful, because then you have, did you do the thing? No, I didn't do the thing. Did you do the thing?
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay, now I need to do the thing.
Yes.
So I think it's kind of accountability in some ways.
That's why we both have second person to bounce, right? I mean, I founded myself, but I wanted a second person in command so I can...
And do you have advice there?
And advice for connecting. Well, I was thinking of connecting how you contacted me, and I'm very open to conversation, but I also get a lot of contacts that is, can I be in the biennial? Can I be in the biennial? And I'm like, well, we are between biennials, or, well, it's already been done, or it's being curated. It's like just what, this is, please read our statement. This is a DIY artist-run organization. How? So I often don't answer if it's very direct and very blunt and very needy. But if it's more of a, well, how can we partner up? How can we have a conversation? Well, you do podcasts, we have artists. Perfect.
Right.
It's kind of a give and take. It's also free labor on both of our ends. There's a lot of free labor, which I wish didn't exist, but in small organizations which you start yourself, where you build your website yourself,
Yeah.
and you pay for it out of your pocket.
And you just said mistakes. We just noticed that our last podcast has the wrong number. Like it's actually episode 20 and it says episode 18, and we're like, but mistakes do happen when you're trying to do all of it yourself.
You run all of it yourself, and I get a lot of artists saying, oh, you misspelled, or you did this, and I'm very vigilant on that. I'm like, no, I have to get up and change it. It's public. And it's like, oh, come on, it's fine. But it's sort of a passion, absolutely passion, but also interest.
Yeah.
I think interest, people misunderstand how important just interest and conversation, and because of the word immigrant, also I'm very easy to find, because I remember asking you how you found me. And it's Googling, and if anything to do with immigrant, my project will come up, and it's by design, because that's such a loaded word. But I get the good and the bad, but it comes with the territory, and I'm not afraid of all of the conversations. I absolutely have thought a lot about different things, and I'm very aware of all the sides, but I'm also very open to partnerships. So, I mean, if anyone here has an idea, we're currently looking for things, partners, funding, venues, ideas, curators, I mean, artists, it's all always up in the air, because it's not a set thing, which is it's fluid, right? It's kind of fluid platforms. That comes with DIY element for sure. And I'm always on the verge of shutting it down because I find it too much work. And at some point I really had to neglect my practice for at least 2 years almost to establish it, because I had to really leg it, meaning virtually and physically, to really get the grants, do a Kickstarter campaign, which if anyone has done it, it's an absolute elephant of a labor. It is a nightmare. I didn't sleep for 3 months. I mean, and we did it. We raised, $10,000. And it doesn't sound that much, but it's the first thing we did was raise that money to pay artists a small fee, to pay curators, to pay whatever, right? So all of this was free labor, but I immediately had people contacting me, and it was through NIFA and all sorts of things. And if there's interest, I'd be like, let's have a coffee. So I was in Australia, and we ended up on Zoom, I think, chatting. And I was immediately like, yes, let's partner up, let's do things together. And then you start, and here we are. So it's kind of, it's not such a big deal, but it is a big deal. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you have to find your people a little bit.
And like I said earlier, I think that New York is very open to that. I've just found people to be so welcoming and so keen to connect you to other people, like to build that network and help you build that network.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this environment that we're in, in terms of immigrants. It's a very heated environment, it's very nasty, it's retaliatory. Given the environment, as you look ahead towards your next biennial, how do you think that's affecting the way you might be setting things up, thinking about shaping the next exhibition? And also, how do you think artists are responding to it who are in these situations? Maybe they're illegals, or I don't know, that's probably the wrong word. Maybe they don't have a green card or whatever. They have all different statuses. And maybe that even puts them at risk by putting their work out.
Absolutely, it does.
So it gives me chills to think about that. You talked about people self-censoring. So how do you think that that's going to play out as you start planning? And as you look ahead to what immigrant artists are going to be doing over the next
And do you want to announce
2
that?
years?
Do you want to announce yourself in that way? Right.
Well, I mentioned us deciding what to name the biennial for the 501c status. We thought we'll just do artist biennial. And I said, you know what, let's just name it what it is. Let's just keep it going. I wanted to step down and not be part of the board, but then everyone said you have to be. So I wanted to hide as well, because I'm scared too. I'm not a citizen yet here, so I'm a green card holder, and I'm in that conversation. But I also know a lot of artists who are out of status and are very scared. We did take down their work and their stuff from our social media and our website, and I've been in conversations with them. Yes, there's a great fear. At the same time, it's needed more than ever. We're having great response. We're currently contacting so many spaces and venues in New York. And just today, I got an email about Venice Biennial. I don't know, but it's a whole thing. So there's I know. What 2026 is when is our biennial, so we're actually talking about going to Venice and doing an independent project there, but under a certain umbrella that we were contacted about. So there is definitely a wide conversation about it. People are asking me all the time, when is the next one and what are you going to do? Currently being discussed. I'm not sure. I can't tell you yet. It's definitely going to change in terms of how we approach certain things and certain artists, and we'll be having deeper conversations. If artists are afraid to be in it, then,
Yeah, I was just going to say, ultimately, I think it's about how the artist feels about particular labels or participating?
Yeah.
Or?
I don't know, for some artists it's really important to state and to be under the umbrella of the Immigrant Artist Manual. For some it's not, so there's plenty of artists who, and it's up to the curators. I'm currently selecting curators, so I am really interested in what they have to say. Yay, hi. we're ready, yeah. I like a few curators, so there's different voices and there's different conversations, which can be really tricky too. It's part of it. Is the friction and the difficulty sometimes part of the project, but also what are they interested in and what will they highlight? Who are they interested in today? So it changes every time, and that's why I wanted to do the biennial, that it's fluid. It's going to change. It's in flux, and I'm not the one making decisions on artists anymore. I did curate the first one because it was I was the only one, kind of pushing the thing out into the world, and then I kept getting requests from curators, and we just don't have venues or funding, so it's really it's up in the air until we kind of settle down on certain venues and some funding.
Well, do you think that venues are going to say no thank you because they're afraid? I mean, are you finding that already?
Not so much. I mean, New York, it's more about timing, and it's more about actually trying to find a space ahead of time. It's all about everything's being booked a year, 2, 3 in advance. Nobody's saying no, but people are actually putting us down for like 2028. And, it's like, oh, there's going to be, I'm like, put us down. Yes, sure. It's not going away. It will be back again with whatever thematics, whatever curators. I would like to have it in 2026 because I feel there's going to be interesting conversations, whatever they might be, Each biennial has a little bit of a timing. So 2020 was the last administration I really wanted to talk about certain issues. And it was called Here Together. This was pre-pandemic. And then we launched in March 2020. And then it became Here Together on Zoom, like the whole thing. So the second one was, oh my God, I forgot what it's called. Because I didn't curate it, so I was covering as a director. But we'll see. We're very interested in different, it's
I thought it might say on the slide.
It does say on one of them. Yes, any other questions?
Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you.